Yeah, hi. Welcome to another session of mock interviews with Ankit Jain. So this is me, Ankit Jain. So I'm a technical architect at MNC. I'm a Technic certified. I'm active in Salesforce events. This is my LinkedIn URL. And to be updated on future session, you can join our WhatsApp group as well. And you can, if you want to have a session with me, you can book the session on TopMate as well. This is my YouTube channel link. And this is the newly created company page for mock interviews with Ankit Jain. So you can follow that page to be updated around the upcoming job openings or any other technical content as well. So today we have two individuals. One is having 1 year experience and other is having 3 years experience. So we'll be getting started with the interview of a 3 year experience candidate. So candidate S, can you just let's get started with your brief introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Ankit, for giving me time for interviewing me. So I am working in a MNC and I have overall 3 years of experience. And my day-to-day activities are like handle Salesforce talks as a Salesforce developer and administrator. I am Forex certified. I have like platform developer, admin, associate, and AI associate as well certifications. And my day-to-day activities are working on the Apex classes, test classes, asynchronous Apex, and admin related activities as well, like configuring the flows to meet the customer requirements. And yeah, so I work in a US based client which operates pharmacy stores. So we work in that project. So yeah, that's all I guess. Indeed.
There are key pointers like which are missed from your side. First thing, like you started quite well. Like you started with giving your total years of experience and how many certifications you hold. You told about what are those certifications as well. And while you're describing like what your things, like you mentioned very clearly, like my skill set includes Apex, asynchronous Apex. Another important point, LWC is the need of the market. So please talk about it that you have, if you worked on LWC, please highlight it very clearly that I worked on the LWC components, I worked on the flows, I worked on the profile permission sets, I worked on the batch classes, I worked on the queuable triggers, and like I means it's like I also did created the profile permission sets or related stuff as well. And then also talk about any specific clouds which you worked on. Like suppose you worked on the sales cloud or you worked on the service cloud. Please highlight it very specifically. Like, yes, I worked on these clouds as well. And
Yeah,
then,
sure.
yeah, and then talk about like, if you allow me, I would like to talk about the recent project which I worked on. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I'll keep in mind.
Yeah. Now normally what would happen is like you would ask like whether shall I explain the project, and then the panel will most probably say yes. Then you keep talking about like how the introduction of the project should be. Like first step that you have to talk about is the business objective, or what is the company getting out of this implementation, what are their goals. Like suppose it could be like if it is service related to service cloud, you would talk about like the customer support was going down, the customers were quite unhappy around it, so they wanted to improve the customers experience. If suppose it's like for a sales cloud, then you have to tell that they were having like they wanted to streamline or improve the sales process so that they can improve the time to convert a lead, something like that. That is your business objective. Next you talk about like how an end-to-end flow works, like how would the customer interact with the system. Like suppose like there could be uh, two kinds of scenario. Like first it could happen like uh, it starts with the phone calls. You can just say like the customer would call the service executive, like through the toll free number, through the phone numbers and through the city integration, they would capture details and all of it. Then you talk about like how those lead processing and all of it happens in. Yeah, so what would happen is like you can explain around like if it's related to sales cloud, you have to talk about the lead conversion. You can talk about web to lead forms. Then you can talk about like how the opportunity is converted. And that's how like simple in a like in the interest of time, I'm trying to shorten the explanation, but which has been covered explicitly in our various interview sessions as well. S- So that's how it would go. Then do you have exposure in LWC?
Uh, I would say like in real time, I have not worked on it LWC, but yeah, I do have knowledge around that.
Mm. See, in ideal scenario, what would happen is like they would clearly be not want nobody come no company wants to hire people who just have like you are clearly saying up means that you don't have real-time experience with LWC. So what happens is like companies would straight away kind of the panel would think like the candidate does not know much, so they would try to interview other candidates, or it would be set in their mind. So you can say like I worked on few of the implementations in the yeah in my day work. That would sound a little better. In your day work, at least you would have worked, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can, instead of saying like you don't have real-time experience, it sounds very much negative. See, like I got some exposure of LWC in my day work where I practiced few of the super batches and some sample projects, something like that. You can just say, okay.
Yeah.
Then the first question that comes up is like, why do we people actually use LWC?
Yeah. Okay. So LWC is the modern UI framework that we can use to build the components on the Salesforce platform, and it is a lightweight framework. It's a fast, I can say, in performance, so we can build the components very easily because it supports all the modern JavaScript features. It supports the features from ES6 and later on, like the features.
Uh,
So, mhm.
See, the immediate counter question that you would expect is you're talking about lightweight. How is it lightweight? You're saying about the performance being high, but what actually makes the performance high?
So it is like directly built on the web stack. I believe this is the reason.
Yeah, so say it very clearly that the LWC is based on the browser's native web component framework. So browser doesn't have to do much translation while compiling those LWC components. So that's why like the since the transform means the compilation time is not much time is very much reduced. The performance is quite high. So that is the reason like people use LWC. Also security wise, it is uh, it is more secure than Aura. You means it uses something known as Shadow DOM, where it gives a protective layer about directly elements not being exposed to the external JS or external CSS. That is what you would say or would be needing to say. Okay.
Okay.
You talk about like the decorators and available in LWC.
Yeah, we have like three decorators, API, wire, and track decorator.
Okay.
So at the rate API decorator, we generally use for parent to child communication, in which we expose property in the child component public by using at the rate API, and then the parent passes the value that we can get in the child component in read only uh, way. Then we have at the rate track, which is used for tracking the values, uh, basically to make the properties reactive, and we usually use them for object and array data types. As the recent advancement, all the primitive data types are now reactive. And then we have at the rate wire that we use to read the Salesforce backend data, and it's the reactive service, meaning that if any change in the value of the properties occur, then the component renders and we get the updated output.
Okay, what you're saying is perfectly fine. You highlighted the reactive keyword. Uh, keyword is very much needed in this answer. And the other part that you can, yeah, the next question that is therein is, suppose you have a requirement of showcasing contacts in a table, and you don't have much time. What would you rather, means what would be your approach, like if you to do it in LWC?
Um, we can use wire and show the data in lightning data table.
Yeah, that's right. Suppose like you know about LWC, then tell me, like suppose I have like multiple wire methods, and suppose I want to make sure like the sequence is being followed. Like after the first wire method is executed, then only the second one should get executed. Then only the third one should execute. What I should be doing in this scenario?
So by default, there is no way to control the execution order of the wire methods, but we can do a workaround around it by using the reactive variables that uh, the output of one wire service will trigger the next wire method and so on.
Yeah, that's perfectly right. The next thing is how do you do communication between child to parent?
Okay. So from child to parent, we can communicate using the custom events in which we trigger an event in the child component, and then the parent component can handle that event in the form of promises.
Yeah. Speaking about the promises, like can you tell me about promises dot all and promises dot race?
Um, I know about promises.all that it takes the array of promises and returns if all the promises get resolved. But I'm not sure about promises.trace.
See what happens is like in the promises dot race, if suppose there are like multiple promises, once either of the promises is resolved, the part that you have after the promise dot all under the then part of promise dot all, that code would get executed. If either of them, if any one gets completed, immediately it would go into the then part. Like, let me just share my screen. Let's see, like directly, which ChatGPT will just generate. Yeah. See, like now what would happen if like if suppose fetch users data gets completed first, then immediately this part would get executed. It wouldn't wait for the others to get completed. It is like a running race, basically. Whoever wins after that, the competition gets over. Okay.
Okay. And what happens in the case of promise or trace?
Yeah, sorry. Promise dot, yeah, yeah, I'm talking about promise dot trace only. Promise dot all, it would wait for all the promises to complete, then only the other part would get executed. And promise dot trace, what would happen if either of them gets fulfilled, then the end then part get executed.
Okay. Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, no worries. The next question that comes up around the LWC is around uh, the difference between the imperative calling. When do we go for imperative calling and when do we go with @fire?
At the rate where we generally use, as I said, it is a reactive service and it executes as soon as the values comes into picture of the properties. And at the rate where we usually use when we only want to read the data from Salesforce, and DML are not supported in VI service. While in the case of imperative effects, we can invoke the effects methods like with our requirement, and also we have the full control over the data that we can perform the DML operations over that.
Suppose I have a requirement, like suppose on a click of a button, I should get a data of say user object. Whether in this scenario, whether you will go with imperative calling or it would be @wire.
In this scenario, I'll go with imperative effects
Why?
because I have to call a method on the click of a button.
Yeah, that is because it's a custom user action where you need to uh, uh, do the action means do the activity.
Okay.
Yeah. The next part is around like have you used or you heard about Lightning Data Service?
Yes, yes.
Can you
So
tell me
we
like
use,
yeah, when do we use that here?
yeah, we use Lightning Data Service to read the Salesforce data or records without writing the FX code. So we can use different wire adapters to read the Salesforce data and also some base Lightning uh, standard components like Lightning record form, Lightning edit, and view form also. So
Okay.
without writing the FX code, we can access
Okay.
the Salesforce records.
Okay. The next part around is around event dot stop propagation, event dot prevent default. What is the difference between these two?
Yeah, event.stop propagation is used to stop the event from going up in the hierarchy or stopping the bubbling property of the event. And event.prevent default is used to prevent the uh, standard, I can say, the feature of a component. Like we can prevent the submission of a form using that, and we can write our logic around that.
Yeah, that's right. Can you tell me like what the order of execution of LWC? Like how would it start? What were the first things that would get called? Consider like there's a parent component and there's a child component. What will be the
Mhm.
sequence of things that would get executed?
Okay. So I believe so. First of all, the constructor gets called whenever the component is created and before it is connected to the DOM. And after that, we have connected callback, and then we have rendered callback,
At the rate wire, at the rate wire. When will at the rate wire get executed? Before the constructor or after the constructor?
It, I believe it gets executed two times. First of all, as soon as the component is initialized, but at the time the values are not present of the properties, so it will not give any output. After that, we have connected callback, and since in the connected callback we set the values property, and after that again the wire method gets called. I'm not
Uh,
sure on
no,
that,
no,
but
no, no, no. Like it would just get called after the constructor.
uh,
That is the reason. Mhm. There is a good diagram actually which I'm searching, which had this. Hmm. Other than that, can you tell me like if suppose I need to do expose a method away for LWC, what is the annotation that I will need?
sorry, can you read the question?
Yeah, if suppose I want the apex method to be available to be used in LWC, any
Mhm.
annotation should I have on the apex method?
Yeah, we need to annotate our method with as at the rate aura enabled, and that method should be static and public. And also, if we are just using for reading the data, we can also have catchable equal to true.
Okay, yeah, that's right. See, this is what like after constructor is called, then we have the public property being called. Then the connected callback gets executed. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
The next part that would come up here is after this thing, the panel would definitely want to talk about like the difference between this PubSub model and our LMS. What are the differences?
Um, so Pupshot model is the legacy, I would say, framework that we use to communicate between components which are not related to each other. But it is not Salesforce recommended approach to use Pupshot. We should use or go with Lightning messaging service in which we create a messaging channel, and in that messaging channel a component
Okay.
publishes the event and another component subscribes to that event and receive the data.
Yeah, but here always talk about the messaging channel context, publish method that we have out of the box from the library, talk about subscribe method as well. Those are needed and well you explain the things, okay?
Okay.
The next thing that comes up is now after this LWC section is done, the panel would definitely or might ask you to write a LWC code sample on the related to JS around the Lightning data table or some simple scenarios only, so that they know like understand the syntax and how it is getting called. Like suppose you have a requirement like you want to like click of a button, the page should navigate to suppose a order detail page. Okay, what would you need in the LWC for to achieve this?
We can use navigation itself to achieve this scenario
Yeah,
to
correct.
navigate.
Yeah, that's the right answer. After this LWC, the panel would want to go in the Apex. Like in the Apex, they would ask you about the best practices of writing Apex code.
Yeah. So we should write one trigger per object. We should write logicless trigger. We should write context-specific handler methods, and we should also avoid hard coding IDs in our Apex code. We should not write DML inside our loops, and also SOQL queries. And we should use collection data types to handle bulk data, and we should bulkify our code,
Yeah.
and we should not also use nested for loops, and also we should not we should streamline our software queries using where clause so that only required records are fetched on the database.
Okay. Next thing is like, can you tell me about with sharing, without sharing, and inherited sharing?
Yeah. So with sharing is used when we want to respect the user's sharing settings when running the Apex code, and without sharing is used to run the code in I can say system mode and to avoid the sharing settings of the current user. And inherited sharing is used in Apex to determine the sharing context of the class at one time. That means if calling class is in with sharing context, the class will also run in with sharing, and same goes with without sharing as well.
Okay. Let's Yeah, so after this with sharing, without sharing, and inherited sharing, the important part you need to mention here is when we're talking about with sharing, the sharing rules would be respected, and only like it won't execute means it take care around the FLS like this field is that object would have the permission. It only takes care of the bit like the records which I'm not the owner. I won't be able to query those records or update those things. You need to still have the field level security and the object level security checks done in your code, or you use with security enforced or with user mode. Okay.
Okay.
And without sharing it is completely system context, so no checks are needed in therein. Even if you're not the owner, you would be able to do things. Inherited sharing, what it would do is like if it is called from without sharing, then only it would work like without sharing. Otherwise, by default, it would work in with sharing only. And if nothing is mentioned, then it works without sharing.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing that comes up around is like they would give you a trigger scenario. Most probably, they would try to give you a kind of custom roll-up summary, or they might give you a scenario like suppose like I have a field like on the account like zonal manager. Whenever a record is being means a zonal manager is populated, I want that record to be shared with the zonal manager. What will be the approach?
Um, I can use Apex based sharing
Yeah,
with the
correct.
help of share object. I can write a code to share the record.
Yeah, correct. So then they would ask you to write a code around that in the interest of time. We're not going with any code related item as of now. The next thing that would come up is in the Apex, they would ask you around what is the difference means. Can you tell me about like suppose you are getting HTML error in your code, what would you do?
So mixed DML error generally occurs when we try to perform DML operations on setup and non-setup objects simultaneously in one transaction. So to avoid that, I will uh, move some part of the code in asynchronous processing or asynchronous effects so that uh, the transaction is different for setup and non-setup objects.
Okay. You tell me what is a setup object and what is a non-setup object?
Yeah, so setup objects are those as objects that affect the user's access to records in the organization, like user profile permission set. And non-setup objects are the objects that store the transactional data into them.
Okay. The next thing that comes up is, can you tell me about like batch class? What how many records can I process in batch class?
With the help of database.query locator, we can process up to 50 million records.
Okay. Can you tell me what is the I mean what is the batch size for the batch class?
Okay, so it ranges from 1 to 2000, and the default is 200.
Correct. That is very important. The next thing that would be coming up related to Apex would be which scenario or like so we use the when do we go with the means why do we write test dot start test and stop test?
Yeah, so we use these two methods in our test classes to reset the governor limits and to force the asynchronous operations to run in a synchronous manner so that we can assert the values in our test method after the processing completes.
Yeah, correct. The next thing that comes up around is like can you tell me around what is the say do you know any of the clouds like Sales Cloud or Service Cloud?
Yeah, I have worked primarily on say service and sales cloud.
Which of those clouds are you more comfortable on?
I believe service cloud.
Okay. Can you tell me about email to case function setup and how does it work?
Uh, yeah, so email to case functionality is like we have a email box set up, and on that uh, email address we send an email, and through that email we can create a case by writing an email service, by writing the Apex code,
No.
by
Apex code and all is not needed, and you just need to have a long email address,
Mhm.
and then you use that in the forwarding mailbox in your mailbox. You need to add the forwarding address, and then it would automatically be handled.
Okay. So for writing custom email service, we need to write
We normally
forwarding.
don't write. We normally don't write any custom email service.
Okay.
It's fully declarative. You create a long email address. Then you add that long email address to your regular email address, like support@gmail.com. Then you add the like whenever that email that is coming to support@gmail.com, that should be auto forwarded to the long email address that you created in Salesforce. Okay,
Yeah.
that's how it would work. Then the next scenario most probably would be around writing the SQL queries around how to get contact accounts without any contacts in single query.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
You attend those accounts which don't have any contact.
Yeah. So we can write like select name, comma, the fields that we want to query from the account, and here where ID uh, in select account ID from contact.
Not in.
Oh, we want no context. Okay, then in the case not in. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. The next question would be around your queuable. Like, how do you call a queuable method or a queuable class?
With the help of system.enqueueJob.
Okay. Yeah, the next thing after this part of the trigger would be around, do you know what row causes or sharing reason?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell me what are the fields that we have?
Okay, so for using the Apex based sharing, we do have different fields that we need to provide, like parent ID, user or group ID, access level, and row cause. So the parent ID is the record that we want to share, and user or group ID is the user to whom we want to share the record, and access level that we want to get, and row cause is like uh, why we are sharing like a record. I believe it's manual by default.
Yeah, that should be fine. The next thing would be around like sales to service cloud capabilities. Now, in the interest of time, we will switch to candidate D to talk about 1 year experience can of candidate. Candidate D, you were there?
Yeah,
Okay. So let's get started with your brief introduction.
okay. Hello. I am
Yeah.
a 1 year experienced candidate. I'm working in an MNC. I work on Marketing Cloud, and my project is related to pharma. And through the training, we have gone through the concepts of all configuration, customization, and LWC, which we take in consideration while working in the project, along with flows, profiles, permission sets, and some LWC component creations.
So are you working as a marketing cloud developer or are you working on the core platform only?
Uh,
Since you talked about you worked on the marketing cloud, so that's why I'm a little concerned, like whether the opening means you're targeting marketing cloud developer jobs or you're talking about you're targeting the regular core Salesforce jobs only.
Core Salesforce jobs only, like we work via Viva
Oh,
CRM.
yeah. Okay, okay, got it. So, like which objects have you been like? Can you tell me about the relationship between account and contact?
Yeah, it is a lookup relationship uh, between account and contact.
But why then it happens like when you delete an account, the contacts get also deleted? Is it not a master detail?
Mm, I I think it is a lookup relationship only.
Yeah, so you have to talk about like it's a lookup relationship with cascade delete equal to true.
Okay.
Cascade delete means once a parent is deleted, the child will automatically get deleted. This property is by default enabled for master detail.
Okay.
Okay. The next thing that comes up is what means why do we use sharing rules? Or let's talk about in general, like can you tell me about the security model of Salesforce?
Uh, which model?
Security model.
Okay. In security model, we have sharing rules, and sharing rules are used to give access irrespective of profiles, so that uh, sharing rule is manually shared if we want to share manually or by sharing settings.
You are really confused around these all the mechanisms. Let me just reiterate that. See, there are three types of whenever anybody talks about security model, tell them like there are three levels of security. One is the record level, second is object level, and third is field level. Okay. So when
Okay.
we talk about uh, means first we talk about object level and field level. Object level and field level permissions are handled through profile, permission sets, and permission set groups. Then the record level, the baseline is given through the OWD, like which means or by default. Suppose I'm not the owner of a record. What things will be there visible to me? That is gone by this OWD. Like we have public read only, read write, and private as well. So like this, there are various values that are available. Then to open up the access, like we have roles, like suppose it is in the hierarchy, the parent should be able to see the child records. So by default for standard objects, it is true. So this is controlled by grant access using hierarchy setting. So by default, it is true for standard objects. For custom objects, you have option whether to enable it or not. The problem with next comes around is like with the role, there's a problem like parallel people at the same level won't be able to share the data. So we have sharing rules in place. So there are three types of sharing rule. First is your criteria based sharing rule, second is the owner based sharing rule, and third is the guest based sharing rule. In owner based sharing rule, we just know like if access is given to a particular public group or a user, the same access has to be given with the other user as well. And in the criteria based sharing rule, we don't know like the criteria, but what we means we don't know about the we just know the criteria. When the criteria is fulfilled, then it should be shared with the particular individual. Like suppose if the country is India, then it should be shared with the Indian service customer service agent only. It shouldn't be shared with other service agents. So like that, we have the option of configuring. Now the guest sharing rule. Guest sharing rule is applicable for non-logged in users which are not logged in. So only read access is provided to them by default. Now the next part is around like how do I delete a user in Salesforce? Hello?
Hello.
What?
Hello.
Yeah. Please continue. Can you tell
Yeah.
me?
Sorry.
Yeah, can
I
you tell?
wasn't able to hear. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, not a problem. I'm asking, how do I delete a user in Salesforce?
We can delete a user saying the freeze option is there.
Okay, apart from freeze, what is the other option that we have?
I'm
So
sorry, I'm unable to recall.
no problem. So what happens is like there's no option of deletion. What happens is like either you can deactivate a user or you can freeze the user. Inactive the user, your license gets freezed. When you're freezing a user, the user loses the access, but the license is still consumed. In practical use case, what has been observed is we freeze a user only for some duration, like 1 or 2 days. If that person is not accessing the org for more duration, we actually directly inactivate the user itself. That's what normally we do. Okay.
Okay.
The next thing is around. Can you tell me, like, suppose you have a requirement that whenever a field is like checked, unchecked to check only, then the particular set of fields should be visible. Like suppose you have a button called edit code information. Okay. Whenever that checkbox is checked, then only the fields like of code related, like code name, code status should be come in editable mode. Otherwise, they should come in read only mode only. So how do you fulfill this kind of requirement?
These kind of requirements can be fulfilled via field dependencies, we can say. If that particular field is checked, then only the other fields should be visible to the particular page.
Where will you configure this field dependency?
Uh, and page, no.
It's dynamic forms.
Okay.
Can you tell me the difference between public group and queues?
Yeah, public groups are a set of people uh, who have particular access, and queues are the one who can work accordingly if one is not available that way someone.
See, what needs to be answered, how it should be answered is public group is basically a set of people who are put in a group so that we can provide the access, like sharing for sharing rules, we can create a public group. And the concept of queues is similar to public group, but here the concept is on sharing the load. Like it works like suppose you have uh, queue for a cases. So in the case, people who are handling the cases, this is a queue. So the entire load of cases will be shared across these people. But whereas in the public groups, the way it is created is like the people are we are able to share the records like through the sharing rules or through the sharing the list views. We create the public groups in that regards. Okay.
Yes.
The next thing is around uh, can you do no 1 minute. Can we have a user without any role?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a user without any permission set?
Without permission set also, yes. Yeah.
Without profile?
No, not without profile.
Okay. Can you tell me the different methods that are available in the batch class?
uh, yeah, executable, finish, and start, 3 methods.
Okay. How many times will the execute method be called? Twice or thrice?
Execute method will be called 2 times. Yeah.
No, it will not be called 2 times. It will depend upon how much is the records that are retrieved and what is the batch size that you have configured.
Okay.
That was a trick question.
Yeah, means in execute method, how many queries we write accordingly, we call it that way, right?
No, 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 no.
Okay.
In the start method, when you do a query or you just pass the list, how many records are available and then what is the batch size. Like in the database.execute batch, you pass the batch size as well.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Got
Can you tell me about have you used database.set save point or you have any idea about that?
Mhm. Yeah, database dot save point and is used to save the records, and we have database dot I guess commit also.
Okay. Other than that, I think in 1 year experience you won't have much idea about LWC as well. And what are the things that I asked for 3 year candidate around some basic stuff? The same questions would be asked. So now in the interest of time, like 1 minute, we'll have to close.